So what we're going to do is we're going to take the x equals 3, our input, and we're going to dump it into the top of the machine. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 3. So I'm going to highlight all of those locations in orange where I'm going to drop it in, and then off to the side, I'm going to start writing the machine. So f of, that's where an x is. I'm going to pull it out. I'll put something in there in just a second. 3, there's another x, and then minus 1. So inside all of those locations is where I'm going to put my x value. In this case, it's 3. So I'll plug my 3 in. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. While we're going through and doing this problem, remember that the left-hand side, that f of 3, is just notation. So leave it alone. Just kind of carry it along with you. So we'll do f of 3. Now I have to obey order of operations. The first thing that I'm going to do here is the 3 times 3, which I know is 9, and then drop the 1 down. Remember, you only want to do like one thing at a time here. Then carry the notation with you, and the 9 minus 1 is going to give me 8. Okay, so my 3 was my input. So notice down here at the bottom, inside the parentheses that I color-coded in orange, is my 3. That's the number I dropped into the top. But then I also have this 8 now. Well, the 8 is what I got after I plugged the 3 in. The 8 goes inside the green box at the end. Now, important to note here, this is big. On the assessments, I am going to expect you to write your answers in function notation. That is what I have marked all in the red box at the bottom. So the entire answer is f of 3 equals 8. Okay, so moving on to part B. This one is set up a little bit differently. So it's still the function machine, but instead of actually having it drawn out, it's actually written out in words for us. So we still have the same function machine, f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. What we're trying to do is we're trying to calculate the output. So I'm going to highlight that in green because that's what I'm looking for. I don't know what it is, but I do know the input. The input is 14. You'll notice that if you look at the question at the bottom, the 14 is already put inside the parentheses for me, which is good. Remember, the input is going to be inside those parentheses. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy down the function. So f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. I'm just going to kind of bring it over here with me. Then, everywhere I see an x, using my color coding, I'm going to plug in the 14. So I'll get f of, okay, my 14 goes there, 3. Remember, whenever we plug something in, use parentheses. I'm going to plug a 14 in there and then just drop everything else with me. So there's all my x's being put in place. Now, the left-hand side is just notation. Leave it alone, just kind of carry it with you. So f of 14. Now, obeying order of operations, we're going to multiply the 3 and the 14. That's going to give us 42. Drop the minus 1 down, because we haven't done that yet. Carry the notation with us. And then do the work. Once we get a final answer, that is the output. But the orange thing inside the parentheses was the input. So let's go back and put the output where it belongs. And remember, the entire red box is the answer. So f of 14 is equal to 41. Now, what I'd like you to do is I would like you to do part C. I want you to use the exact same function. F of x is equal to 3x minus 1. I'm giving you the input because we can see that it's inside the parentheses next to the f. So I'm going to color code it orange. So what I'd like you to do at this point, I'd like you to work out f of negative 10. So we're going to take that function of f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. And we're going to plug in that negative 10 for all of our x's. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to use parentheses to plug in my value. Use parentheses, that's a key. So inside all of those, I'm going to plug in the negative 10. Okay, then from here, I'm going to perform order of operations. So that's going to give me a negative 30 minus 1. You guys know how I feel about that minus thing. So I'm going to take that subtraction and turn it into a negative and then flip the sign. Only because I think that addition makes more sense than the subtraction did. So I'm going to keep my negative 10 on the left. Remember, it's just notation. And then I'm going to add those guys together. I do get negative 31 as the output. The input was negative 10. And that, everything inside the red box, is my correct answer. On this one, we still have the same function machine, which is kind of nice and consistent, I think. But this time, we're being asked a completely different question. So what we're supposed to do with that thing. So I'm still going to color code though. So if the output of the machine, all right, I know what the output is this time. The output of the machine is 24. So that would be the final answer after plugging something in. My job is to find the input. So I'm trying to find x. So if you take a look down at the very bottom here, we don't know what x is, but we do know what it's equal to. So here's my plan. I am going to take the f of x function and I'm going to write it right underneath the f of x equals 24. I'm going to stack them up. So I know that f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. That's what I was told. So what I would like to do is I would like to take the entire f of x, so whatever it's equal to right there, and I'm going to plug it in to the equation right here. So notice that they both equal f of x. So I'm just going to pull the f of x out and I'm going to put the 3x minus 1 in its place. I do want to make sure that once I plug it in, I still have x's because I'm looking for x. So if you take a look, I still have an x inside the blue box. That's important. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3x minus 1 equals, so there's the orange information I have so far, and then drop the 24 down. There's the green information. So I still have the orange and the green within the equation. But now my job, you'll notice this time, I have to try to find what x equals. So we need to go back to solving equations you guys have been doing for the last 2 years. So I'm going to go to my equal sign and I'm going to split it. I like to keep them separated. I take a look at the left-hand side where the x is located, and I need to start moving the numbers over to the other side so I can x by itself. Now, your answers can be ugly. That's okay. So I've got a 3 that's being multiplied, and I have a 1 that's being subtracted. Typically, not all the time, but typically, we do reverse order of operations to get the x by itself. So in this case, I'm going to have to move the 1 or get rid of the 1. So if I'm subtracting 1 right now, to get rid of it, I'm going to add it. So I'm going to add 1 to each side. I stacked the negative 1 and the positive 1 on top of each other so that when I add straight down, I get 0. That's my goal. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So just pairs. The only thing I have left over here now is 3x. Notice I still have the x. That's important. On the other side, I'm going to go ahead and add the 24 and the 1. I get 25. Last thing, I have to get the 3 off of the x. So I'm going to divide by 3. Now I know any number divided by itself is just 1. That's why I did this. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I technically get 1x, good, I still have the x, equals, now if 3 went into 25 evenly, I would divide it, but it doesn't. I'm just going to leave it as 25 over 3. Now, I don't need the 1 in front of the x, so I can actually drop that. So I get x equals, so there's my x, drop down my 25 over 3. Once the x is by itself and you have just a plain old number on the other side, you just found the input. That's what x is going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do f of and equals. Remember, the x value goes inside the parentheses and the y value, or the output, goes on the other side. Okay, so orange was 25 over 3. That's what I just found. And green was given to me very back at the beginning, which is 24. That is the correct answer. So here we have 6 examples, like I said. 3 of them, so the top 3, are going to be you're given the input. So your job is to drop stuff inside the function. Your job is to then find the output at the end. You have to make sure that you write your answer in function notation. I'm harping on this because it is on the test. You have to write your answer in function notation. So then we've got the bottom 3. The bottom 3, you are given the output. Your job is to go backwards like we just did. So I'm going to give you a few minutes on this slide before I start working the problems out. So when you're ready to double check your work, come take a look at my screen and see how you did. And you can always double check my answer because I'll put the red box around it so you know. You're absolutely welcome to use calculators as well. Just be careful because the calculator will do exactly what you tell it to do. Now, C is a little tricky. We know based off of our knowledge of square roots that at this point, you guys don't know how to square root a negative number. I don't want to say that that is true forever. You'll learn how to do it next year. You just haven't been introduced to it yet. But at this point, the best we could say is no real solution. It's not that it's impossible. It's just not something we know yet. Now on part D, my expectation is that we know that something squared is times itself. So we know that positive 10 times positive 10 gives us positive 100. But there's also a second answer. We also know that negative 10 times negative 10, signs match, we get positive, is also going to give us positive 100. So this one is a little tricky because there's two answers to it. So we have to make sure that we write both of them. Okay, we get to another weird one. If you take a look at E, we're basically saying the absolute value, which is distance from 0. We know that the absolute value can't be negative. It can be 0 or it could be positive. But if you take a look at E, we're getting a statement that doesn't make any sense at all. So what we're going to say to this, so I'll highlight it in yellow right there so don't miss our colors here. This one cannot happen. It's impossible. We don't know a number whose distance is negative. So what I'm going to say to E is that f of x equal to negative 3, this is impossible. It cannot be done. So there isn't an x value that makes this correct. I am getting some questions. I will double back, so be patient. Let me see if we can finish through these. And F is, I think, probably our favorite one up here because it kind of goes along with what we've been doing. Maybe not quite as complicated as the other ones are. Oh, I just realized I didn't box my answer on the last question. So the red box is just saying that it's impossible. Okay, let's finish up this last one. This one we get an answer. That's nice. Oh, highlight goes in there. So I know f of 5. Red box. Okay, so that finishes up these problems. I will go back though